The stars were cold and empty in this part of space. No ships traveled here. No stations floated in the darkness. This was the dead corridor, and every species in the galaxy knew to stay away. But the UES Hammer of Dawn was not like other ships. It was a Terran cruiser, and Terrans were not like other species. Captain Tay stood on the bridge with his hands behind his back. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and scars on his knuckles. He had been a soldier for 30 years, and his eyes held the calm of someone who had seen death many times and was no longer afraid of it. "Captain," said Lieutenant Hannah from her station. She was young, with sharp eyes and quick fingers that danced across her controls. "I am picking up something strange." "Strange how?" Tay asked. "A signal, very weak. It is repeating every 40 seconds. She pressed more buttons and frowned at her screen. "The format is old, very old. I do not recognize it." Tay walked over to her station and looked at the data. The signal was barely there, like a whisper in a storm. But it was definitely real. "Can you clean it up?" "I am trying." Hannah worked for several minutes while the bridge crew watched in silence. Finally, she nodded. "I have something." She pressed a button, and a voice filled the bridge. It was thin and scared, speaking in a language that the ship's computer translated instantly. "Anyone, please, anyone who can hear this. We are the last. The fleet is coming. We cannot run anymore. Please, anyone." The message repeated, again and again, the same desperate words. Engineer Day looked up from his station. He was a short man with oil stains on his uniform and tools hanging from his belt. "That sounds bad," he said. "It sounds like someone needs help," said Sergeant Wu. He was the biggest man on the ship, with shoulders like mountains and hands that could crush metal. But his voice was gentle. Dr. Yoon, the ship's medical officer, stepped forward. She was a small woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Captain, I recognize that language. It is Valari." The bridge went quiet. "That is not possible," said Hannah. "The Valari are extinct. The Kryn destroyed their homeworld 300 years ago." "Clearly some survived," said Dr. Yoon, "and they are asking for help." Captain Tay looked at the main screen. The dead corridor stretched before them, dark and dangerous. The Kryn Dominion controlled this space. They were conquerors who ate worlds and crushed any species that stood against them. No one entered their territory and came back. But somewhere out there, someone was calling for help. "Navigation," Tay said. "Plot a course to the source of that signal." The navigation officer, a young man named Jin, hesitated. "Sir, that will take us deep into the dead corridor, into Kryn space." "I know. The Galactic Compact has warned all ships to stay away. They say anyone who enters is on their own." "I know that too." Tay turned to face his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting. "I am not ordering anyone to do this. If we go in there, we might not come out. The Kryn have destroyed entire fleets. We are one ship." He paused and looked at each of them in turn. "But someone is asking for help. Someone who has been running and hiding for 300 years. Someone who has nowhere else to go." He pointed at the screen where the signal still pulsed, weak and desperate. "That could be us someday, any of us, and I would want someone to answer." Silence filled the bridge. Then Sergeant Wu stood up from his seat. "I did not join the Terran Navy to be safe," he said. "I joined to help people. I am with you, Captain." Lieutenant Hannah nodded. "The odds are bad. I like bad odds. They make victory taste better." Engineer Day shrugged. "Someone needs to keep this ship running while you all play hero. I am in." Dr. Yoon simply smiled. "I became a doctor to save lives. Let us go save some." One by one, every crew member on the bridge spoke their agreement. Not a single person refused. Captain Tay felt something warm in his chest. Pride, perhaps. Or maybe just the knowledge that he served with the best people in the galaxy. "Plot the course," he said to Jin. Best speed. Yes, sir. The hammer of dawn turned toward the darkness and began to move. As they traveled deeper into the dead corridor, Hana continued to study the signal. She pulled up old records from the ship's database, files that had not been opened in centuries. The Valari, she said, reading from the screen. They were a peaceful species, artists and musicians. They lived on a paradise world with low gravity and gentle weather. They had no military, no weapons. When the Kryn came, they had no way to fight back. How did any of them survive? Wu asked. Some must have been off-world when the attack happened. Traders, maybe, or explorers. Hana shook her head. 300 years of running and hiding. I cannot imagine it. Dr. Yun looked thoughtful. They must be very scared, not just of the Kryn, of everyone. The galaxy abandoned them. Not everyone, said Captain Tay. Not us. The hours passed slowly. The dead corridor was full of dangers. Asteroid fields that could tear a ship apart, gas clouds that blocked sensors, and everywhere, the wreckage of old battles, ships that had tried to fight the Kryn and lost, but the hammer of dawn pushed forward. Finally, after 2 days of travel, they found them. 12 ships appeared on the sensors. They were small and old, held together with patches and prayers. They moved slowly, like wounded animals trying to escape a predator. The Valari convoy, said Hana. 42,000 life signs. The last of their species, Dr. Yun whispered. Captain Tay stared at the screen. 12 ships carrying an entire people. Everything they had, everyone they loved, all of it running from something terrible. Open a channel, he said. Let them know we are here to help. Hana nodded and sent the message. The response came quickly. A face appeared on the screen. It was not human. The being was small, with pale blue skin that glowed softly like starlight trapped under ice. Large eyes filled with fear looked out at them. Terrans, the being whispered. Deathworlders. And then the transmission cut off. Captain Tay frowned. What was that about? Dr. Yun's face was troubled. Captain, I think they are afraid of us. Afraid of us? We are here to help them. We know that. But to the rest of the galaxy... She paused, choosing her words carefully. Humans have a reputation. We come from a heavy-gravity world with a poisonous atmosphere. We eat meat. We can survive wounds that would kill any other species. We keep fighting even when we should be dead. She looked at the blank screen where the frightened face had been. To them, we are not rescuers. We are monsters. The bridge was silent. Captain Tay looked at the distant ships on the screen. 42,000 people, terrified and alone, running from one set of monsters and now faced with another. He took a deep breath. Then we will have to show them that monsters can be kind. The Valari ships floated in the darkness like frightened birds. They had stopped running, but they had not come closer. For 6 hours they stayed at the edge of sensor range, watching the Terran cruiser with fear. Captain Tay had sent 12 messages. He had tried to explain that they came in peace, that they wanted to help, but every message received the same response: silence. They are not going to trust us, said Lieutenant Hana. They have heard too many stories. Stories about what? Asked Sergeant Wu. About us. Dr. Yun pulled up files on her screen. Look at what the Galactic Compact says about humans. They call us Deathworlders. They say we come from a planet that should not support life, heavy gravity that crushes bones, an atmosphere filled with a gas that burns metal, extreme temperatures, deadly predators everywhere. She scrolled through the information. They say we eat the flesh of other creatures. They say our bodies are so strong that we can heal from wounds that would kill anyone else. They say we do not need sleep like normal beings. That we can keep fighting even with broken bones and bleeding wounds. Wu frowned. Those things are true. Yes, and that is the problem. Dr. Yoon looked at the distant ships. To them, we are not people. We are nightmares that walk and talk. Captain Tay stood by the window, watching the stars. He thought about what it must feel like to be those people out there, running for 300 years, losing their home, their families, their world. And now, when they finally ask for help, the thing that answers is a monster from their darkest stories. We need to make contact in person, he said. Face to face. Show them who we really are. They might shoot at us, said Hana. They might. But we have to try. An hour later, a small shuttle left the Hammer of Dawn. Inside were Captain Tay, Sergeant Wu, and Dr. Yoon. They had left their weapons behind. They carried only medical supplies and food. As the shuttle approached the Valari flagship, a message finally came through. Terran vessel, stop where you are. The voice was thin and scared. Captain Tay gestured for the pilot to stop. We are stopped, he said into the communication system. We come in peace. We only want to talk. A long silence. Then a different voice spoke. This one was younger, and there was something in it that was not quite fear. Curiosity, perhaps. You answered our signal. Why? Tay thought about the question. Because you asked for help. But you do not know us. We are nothing to you. You are people. That is enough. Another silence. Then the young voice spoke again. My name is Lyra. I am the one who sent the signal. I pointed it toward your space on purpose. Why? Because the Kryn are coming. And I thought... The voice hesitated. I thought that if monsters are coming to kill us, maybe we need monsters of our own. Captain Tay smiled sadly. We are not monsters, Lyra, but we will help you fight yours. The Valari flagship opened its doors and let them in. The inside of the ship was beautiful, even though it was old and damaged. The walls were covered with art, paintings of a world with pink skies and gentle oceans. Music played softly from somewhere, sad and sweet. And everywhere, there were Valari. They were small creatures, barely reaching Wu's waist. Their skin glowed with soft light, different colors for different emotions. Right now, most of them glowed pale yellow. Fear. They moved away from the humans as they walked. Parents pulled children behind them. Elders whispered prayers. The heavy footsteps of the humans made them flinch. Dr. Yoon walked carefully, making herself as small and quiet as possible. But even she was too big, too loud, too warm. She could see the Valari sweating just from being near her. Human body temperature was like a fever to them. They were led to a large room where an old Valari waited. His glow was dim and he moved slowly, but his eyes were sharp. I am Elder Pym, he said. I lead what is left of my people, and you are the Deathworlders. I am Captain Tay. This is Dr. Yoon and Sergeant Wu. We are human, yes, but we are here to help. Elder Pym studied them. Help. A strange word. The galaxy did not help us when the Kryn burned our world. The Galactic Compact did not help us when we begged for shelter. 300 years. And no one helped. We are not the Galactic Compact. No, you are something worse if the stories are true. Pym's glow flickered orange. Anger. They say you eat flesh. They say your bones cannot be broken. They say you feel no pain. Sergeant Wu stepped forward. The Valari around them backed away in fear. But Wu moved slowly, carefully. He reached into his pack and pulled out a ration bar. This is what we eat, he said. He held it out so Pym could see. It is made from plants and animals. Yes, but we do not kill for sport. We eat to live, like all creatures. He took a bite and chewed. Several Valari made sounds of disgust. And I feel pain. Wu rolled up his sleeve to show old scars on his arm. Every one of these hurt. I am not a monster. I am just a man. A small Velari child crept out from behind her mother. She was tiny, her glow a soft blue of curiosity. She stared up at Wu with huge eyes. "You are very big," she said. Wu smiled and knelt down so he was closer to her height. He was still huge, but less frightening this way. "I know, but big things can be gentle." He held up his massive hands. "Watch." He made shapes with his fingers, a bird, a fish, a flower. Shadow puppets dancing on the wall. The child laughed. It was a beautiful sound like bells. Other children crept forward, their fear forgotten. Soon Wu was surrounded by little Velari, all wanting to see the shadow animals. Elder Pim watched this with strange eyes. His glow shifted from orange to something softer. "You are not what I expected," he said quietly to Captain Tay. "We never are." Dr. Yoon had found the sick area of the ship. It was crowded with Velari who were injured or ill. The medical equipment was old and broken. There were not enough supplies. She opened her medical kit and got to work. The Velari medics watched her with suspicion at first, but she worked carefully, gently. She treated wounds with soft hands. She spoke quietly to her patients, even though they were afraid of her. A young Velari with a broken arm was crying. He flinched when Dr. Yoon approached. "I am going to help you," she said. "It will hurt for a moment when I set the bone, but then it will feel better. Can you be brave for me?" The young Velari looked at her strange flat face, her tiny eyes, her terrifying size, but her voice was kind. He nodded. Dr. Yoon set the bone quickly and wrapped it carefully. The Velari gasped at the pain, but then it faded. He looked at his arm in wonder. "It does not hurt anymore." "It will heal well." Dr. Yoon smiled. "You are very brave." The young Velari's glow changed from yellow fear to pink gratitude. Elder Pim found Lyra standing near the humans, watching everything. "You were right," he said to her. "They are not what I thought." Lyra nodded. "Maybe the stories are wrong. Maybe Deathworlders can be kind." Before Pim could answer, alarms began to sound across the ship. Red lights flashed, voices shouted in panic. A Velari officer ran into the room, his glow blazing red with terror. "Elder Pim, our long-range sensors! The Kryn fleet! They have found us!" The room went silent. "How many ships?" Captain Tay asked. The officer looked at him with eyes full of despair. 47 warships. They will be here in 2 days." Captain Tay looked at the frightened Velari around him. At the children who had just learned to laugh, at the sick who had just begun to hope. 47 warships against 1 cruiser and 12 unarmed refugee vessels. He turned to Elder Pim. "Then we have 2 days to get ready." The news spread through the Velari convoy like fire. The Kryn were coming. 47 warships. In 2 days, everything would end. On every ship, the Velari began to prepare for death. They gathered in groups and sang the old songs, the funeral songs from their lost homeworld. They held their children close and whispered goodbye. They wrote final messages to loved ones who had died long ago, hoping their spirits would hear. 300 years of running had led to this moment. There was nowhere left to go. But on the Hammer of Dawn, something different was happening. Captain Tay stood before his crew in the main hall of the ship. Every person on board was there, 112 humans, standing at attention, waiting for his words. "You all know the situation," Tay said. 47 Kryn warships, 2 days away. We have 1 cruiser and 12 refugee ships with no weapons." He paused and looked at their faces. He saw no fear, only focus. "I am not going to order you to fight. This is a battle we cannot win. The math does not work. Any sane person would run." He let those words hang in the air. "I am not running, but I will not force any of you to stay." He waited. Sergeant Wu stepped forward first. "Captain, I have a question." "Ask it." "When we joined the Terran Navy, we made a promise to protect those who cannot protect themselves, to stand between the innocent and harm." Wu crossed his massive arms. "Did that promise have a part about only fighting when it was easy?" A laugh rippled through the crew. "No," said Tay. "It did not." "Then why are we even talking about this?" Wu grinned. "There are 42,000 people out there who need our help. I say we help them." One by one, every crew member voiced their agreement. Not a single person asked to leave. Captain Tay felt his heart swell with pride. These were his people. These were humans. "Then let us get to work," he said. "We have 2 days to prepare for the fight of our lives." The ship became a storm of activity. Lieutenant Hana took command of strategy. She pulled up maps of the dead corridor on every screen, studying the terrain like a hunter studying the land. "The Kryn have more ships," she said to Tay. "More guns, more armor, more soldiers. In open space, they would destroy us in minutes. But we are not going to fight in open space." She pointed to the map. "The dead corridor is filled with dangers, asteroid fields, gas clouds, the wreckage of old battles. The Kryn know this space, but they do not respect it. They think they are the most dangerous thing here." She smiled, and there was something fierce in it. "We are going to teach them that they are wrong." She outlined her plan. They would use the environment as a weapon, lead Kryn ships into asteroid fields where their numbers meant nothing, hide in gas clouds that blocked sensors, strike fast, hit hard, and vanish before the enemy could respond. "We cannot beat them," she admitted, "but we can hurt them. We can slow them down. And we can buy time for the convoy to escape." Engineer Day was in the engine room, surrounded by his team. They were working on the ship's systems, pushing everything beyond its limits. "The weapons need more power," Day muttered, his hands deep inside a machine. "The shields need more power. The engines need more power. Everything needs more power." "Do we have more power?" asked one of his engineers. Day looked at her with tired eyes. "We will find it. Take it from life support if we have to. We can breathe a little less. We cannot fight a little less." He worked without rest, rewiring systems and rerouting power. By the end of the first day, the Hammer of Dawn was running at 120% capacity. It was dangerous. The ship could tear itself apart at any moment. But it was also faster, stronger, and more deadly than ever before. Sergeant Wu gathered his Marines in the training room. 15 soldiers, the best fighters on the ship. They were going to do something that no species had tried in centuries: board a Kryn ship. "The Kryn are bigger than us," Wu told them. "Stronger, maybe. They have better armor, better weapons." He paused. "But they have never fought Deathworlders up close. They do not know what we can do." He held up his fists. "We can take damage that would kill them. We can keep fighting with broken bones, with bleeding wounds. Our bodies heal while we fight. Our hearts pump harder when we are scared, not slower. Fear makes us stronger." He looked at each Marine in turn. "The Kryn think they are predators. They are about to learn that Earth made better ones." The Marines began to train. Hand-to-hand combat. Close-quarters fighting. How to move in tight spaces. How to strike fast. How to survive. They trained for hours without rest. Humans could do that. They could push past exhaustion, past pain, past the point where any other species would collapse. And then push further. On the Valari flagship, Scout Lyra watched the humans with wonder. They were preparing for a battle they could not win. They knew this. Everyone knew this. And yet they worked with energy and focus. Some of them were laughing. Some were singing strange, rhythmic songs while they worked. She found Dr. Yoon in the medical bay preparing supplies. "Are you not afraid?" Lyra asked. Dr. Yoon looked up from her work. Her face was tired but calm. "Of course I am afraid," she said. We are all afraid. Only fools are not afraid of death. Then why are you smiling? Why are your people singing? This makes no sense to me. Dr. Yoon stopped her work and sat down. She gestured for Lyra to sit beside her. Let me tell you something about humans, she said. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. Predators, diseases, disasters, starvation, everything wanted us dead. And somehow, we survived. She picked up a medical tool and turned it in her hands. We learned that fear is not the enemy. Giving up is the enemy. Fear is just a feeling. It tells you something is dangerous. But then you have to decide what to do about it. And you decide to fight, even when you cannot win. Sometimes, when something matters enough. Dr. Yoon looked at Lyra with gentle eyes. Your people matter. 42,000 lives, the last of your species. How could we not fight for that? Lyra shook her head. I do not understand you. The Galactic Compact, the other species, they would never risk themselves like this. Maybe that is why they lost to the Kryn. And maybe, Dr. Yoon smiled, maybe that is why they are afraid of us. Elder Pym came to the Hammer of Dawn to speak with Captain Tay. The old Valari walked slowly through the human ship, looking at everything with wondering eyes. Everywhere he went, he saw activity, purpose, hope. He found Tay on the bridge, studying tactical maps with Lieutenant Hana. Captain, Pym said, I must ask you something. Tay turned to face him. Of course. Why are you doing this? Truly. Your ship could escape. You could leave us and save your crew. No one would blame you. Tay was quiet for a moment. Elder Pym, do you know what the word human means? It comes from an old word in one of our ancient languages. It means earthly being, just a creature of earth and soil, nothing special. He looked out the window at the stars. But over time, it came to mean something else. To be human means to care about others, to feel their pain as your own, to help, even when it costs you something, even when it costs you everything. He turned back to Pym. If we run away and let your people die, we save our lives. But we lose what makes us human. We become just animals trying to survive. He shook his head. That is not who we are. That is not who I want to be. Pym's glow shifted to a color Tay had not seen before. Deep blue, like the heart of a star. Respect, Dr. Yoon said quietly from across the bridge. That color means respect. The old Valari bowed his head. I have misjudged your kind. Captain, I thought you were monsters. I was wrong. Tay placed a gentle hand on Pym's shoulder, careful not to crush the fragile being. We are monsters, he said, but we choose who we are monsters for. The alarm sounded. Captain, Hana called out, the Kryn fleet has entered the dead corridor. They will be here in 18 hours. Tay looked at the screen. 47 red dots moving toward them like a wave of death. He stood tall. Then let us show them what Deathworlders can do. The Kryn fleet moved through the dead corridor like a great beast hunting prey. 47 warships, each one massive and terrible. Their hulls were dark as death, covered in weapons that could tear planets apart. They had destroyed hundreds of worlds. They had never known defeat. At the front of the fleet, Fleet Commander Grath stood on his bridge. He was huge, even for a Kryn. His scales were black and red, and his eyes burned with hunger. He had hunted the Valari for decades, destroying every ship he found, killing every survivor. Soon, the hunt would be over. Commander, said one of his officers, we have detected the Valari convoy, 12 ships. Good. Prepare to... There is also a Terran cruiser, 1 ship. Grath paused. He had heard of Terrans, the Deathworlders, the creatures from the poison planet, but he had never faced them in battle. 1 ship, he said slowly. They are either very brave or very stupid. What are your orders? Grath smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Destroy them all. The Terrans first. Let us see if Deathworlders die like everyone else. The Kryn fleet moved forward. On the Hammer of Dawn, Captain Tay watched them come. 47 ships, said Lieutenant Hana, moving in standard hunting formation, spread out to cover escape routes. Then we need to change their formation. Tay pointed at the map. The asteroid field. That is where we make our first move. The Hammer of Dawn turned and ran. The Kryn followed. To their sensors, it looked like the Terran ship was fleeing in fear. The small, stupid Deathworlders had finally realized they were going to die. The Kryn ships increased speed, eager for the kill. They did not notice that the Terran ship was leading them directly into the densest part of the asteroid field. Now, said Hana. The Hammer of Dawn spun around with impossible speed. Its weapons fired, not at the Kryn ships, but at the asteroids around them. Massive rocks began to move, pushed by the explosions. They tumbled into each other, creating a chain reaction. Suddenly, the Kryn ships were caught in a storm of stone and metal. 3 ships were destroyed instantly, crushed by asteroids they could not avoid. 2 more collided with each other while trying to escape. Fire bloomed in the darkness. 5 down, said Hana. 42 to go. Grath screamed in rage when he saw his ships die. 5 vessels lost in seconds, killed by rocks. It was humiliating. Find that Terran ship, he roared. Destroy it! But the Hammer of Dawn was already gone, vanished into a gas cloud that blocked all sensors. The battle became a hunt. The Kryn fleet spread out, searching for the small Terran cruiser. They sent scouts into every asteroid field, every debris cloud, every shadow. The scouts did not come back. Captain Tay had divided the dead corridor into zones. Each zone was a trap. The Kryn would enter, and the Hammer of Dawn would strike from hiding. A quick attack, missiles and guns blazing, and then gone before the enemy could respond. It was not a fair fight. It was not supposed to be. Another one down, Hana reported, watching a Kryn scout explode on her screen. That makes 11 ships destroyed. And the convoy? Moving toward the escape route. They are slow, but they are moving. Tay nodded. The plan was working. Every Kryn ship destroyed was one less ship chasing the Valari. Every hour of delay was another hour for the convoy to escape. But he knew it could not last forever. Grath finally understood what was happening. The Terran ship was not running. It was fighting, using the terrain, using tricks, using everything it had to slow his fleet. He was being made a fool by one small ship. All vessels, he broadcast to his fleet, stop the pursuit. Form a defensive sphere. Let the prey come to us. His officers looked at him in confusion. Kryn did not defend. Kryn attacked. Commander? The Deathworlders want to play games. Fine. We will stop playing. Grath pointed at his tactical display. Form around the refugee convoy's escape route. They cannot run forever. When they try to pass us, we destroy them all. It was a simple plan, and it was working. On the Hammer of Dawn, Tay saw the Kryn ships stop and form a wall of metal and weapons directly in the path of the Valari convoy. They are not chasing us anymore, said Hana. They are waiting. Can the convoy go around them? Not with their speed. The Kryn would catch them easily. Tay stared at the screen. 36 Kryn ships remained, formed in a perfect barrier. The convoy would reach them in 6 hours, and then everything would end. Unless someone broke through that barrier first. Sergeant Wu, Tay said into the communication system. Prepare your Marines. We are going to board one of those ships. There was a pause. Then Wu's voice came back, full of fierce joy. Finally, we were getting bored. The Hammer of Dawn flew directly at the Kryn formation. The Kryn saw it coming. They could not believe what they were seeing. One small ship attacking 36 warships head-on. They are insane, said one of Grath's officers. They are Deathworlders, Grath replied. "Kill them." The Kryn ships opened fire. Thousands of weapons blazed in the darkness, filling space with death. The hammer of dawn flew through the storm. Its shields flared and died. Its hull was torn open in a dozen places. Fires broke out across the ship. Crew members were thrown from their stations. Alarms screamed without stopping. But Engineer Day kept the engines running. Lieutenant Hana kept firing back, and Captain Tay kept the ship on course. They crashed into a Kryn destroyer, not to destroy it, but to land on it. Sergeant Wu and his 15 Marines burst from the wounded cruiser and forced their way into the Kryn ship. They moved fast, faster than any species should be able to move. Their weapons fired without stopping. Their bodies took hits that would have killed anyone else, and they kept going. The Kryn warriors tried to stop them. They were bigger than the humans, and their weapons were better. But they had never fought Deathworlders before. Wu took a blade through his shoulder. He broke the Kryn warrior's neck with his bare hands and kept fighting. A Marine named Sue was shot 3 times. She killed 5 Kryn before she finally fell, and even then she managed to arm a grenade that killed 3 more. The humans pushed forward through the ship, leaving destruction behind them. They did not stop for wounds. They did not stop for pain. They did not stop at all. The Kryn had never seen anything like it. These creatures would not die. They could not be stopped. They were nightmares made real. 15 humans against 300 Kryn warriors. The humans won. "The destroyer is ours," Wu reported, his voice tired but triumphant. "Turning its weapons on the fleet now." The captured destroyer began firing at its former allies. Chaos erupted in the Kryn formation as ships tried to destroy their own vessel without hitting each other. 6 more Kryn ships died before the destroyer was finally blown apart. Wu and his surviving Marines escaped in pods just before the explosion, but the price was high. The Hammer of Dawn was crippled. Its weapons were gone. Its engines were dying. Half the crew was wounded or dead. Engineer Day was holding the reactor together with nothing but skill and stubbornness. "Captain," Hana said quietly, "we cannot fight anymore." Tay looked at his dying ship, at his wounded crew. They had done the impossible. They had destroyed 17 Kryn ships with a single cruiser, but 29 still remained, and the Valari convoy was still 3 hours from escape. "Open a channel," Tay said. "To the Kryn fleet commander." Grath's face appeared on the screen. His scales were dark with rage. His eyes burned with hatred. "Deathworlder," he snarled. "You have killed many of my ships, but you are finished now. Surrender, and I will give you a quick death." Captain Tay smiled. "Fleet commander, I have a counteroffer. Take your remaining ships and leave. Let the Valari go free. If you do this, I will let you live." Grath stared at him in disbelief. Then he laughed. "You? Let me live? You have 1 broken ship. I have 29 warships. You are in no position to make demands. You had 47 ships this morning. Now you have 29. In a few hours, you will have fewer." Tay leaned forward. "We are Deathworlders. We do not surrender. We do not run. We fight until we cannot fight anymore. And then we find a way to keep fighting." He stood tall, despite his wounds, despite his exhaustion. "You can destroy this ship, but you will lose more of your fleet doing it. And even if you kill me, more humans will come. They will hunt you across the galaxy. They will never stop. Never." Grath's laughter died. For the first time in his long life, he felt something strange, something cold, fear. "You are bluffing," he said, but his voice was not certain. "Test me," said Tay. "Destroy this ship. See what happens next." The communication ended. On the Hammer of Dawn, the crew waited in silence. The Kryn fleet did not move. Hours passed. The Valari convoy crawled toward the escape route, moving as fast as their old ships could carry them. And still, the Kryn waited, uncertain, afraid. When the Volari finally reached the edge of safety, the Kryn fleet commander made his decision. He turned his ships and retreated. On the bridge of the broken Hammer of Dawn, Captain Tay allowed himself to smile. They had won. But as the crew began to celebrate, the sensors showed something else. 9 ships dropping out of hyperspace. Terran warships, the relief fleet sent by Admiral Yong. They were too late for the battle, but right on time for everything else. And as the fresh Terran ships formed up around the crippled Hammer of Dawn, the Kryn fleet ran faster. They had learned something new today, something the galaxy would not soon forget. Never threaten the people that Deathworlders protect. The Kryn fleet had run, disappearing into the dark reaches of space where even their hate could not reach. The dead corridor was empty of threat for the first time in centuries. And in that emptiness, something new was being born. The Volari convoy floated in safe space, surrounded by Terran warships. 9 fresh cruisers formed a protective ring around the 12 refugee vessels, their weapons silent but ready. Nothing would threaten these people again, not while humans stood guard. On the Hammer of Dawn, repair crews worked without rest. The ship was broken in 100 different ways, but she was still alive. Engineer Day walked through the damage, making notes on a pad, muttering about impossible schedules and supply shortages. He had not slept in 3 days. He did not plan to sleep for 3 more. "You should rest," said Dr. Yoon, finding him in the engine room. "The ship needs me." "The ship will need you more if you collapse from exhaustion." She handed him a cup of tea. "Drink this. Sit down for 5 minutes. That is an order." Day looked at her, ready to argue. But he saw the tiredness in her eyes, too, the weight of all the wounds she had treated, all the lives she had fought to save. Some she had won, some she had not. He sat down and drank the tea. "We lost 18 crew members," Yoon said quietly, "including 6 of Sergeant Wu's Marines." "I know. Their names are on the memorial wall now. I made sure to spell them correctly." Day nodded. He had known some of them. They had laughed with him, eaten with him, complained about the same broken machines. Now they were names on a wall. "Was it worth it?" he asked. Dr. Un was quiet for a long moment. 42,000 Valerie survived because of what we did. An entire species still exists because 18 humans decided their lives were worth less than those of strangers. She looked at him with clear eyes. "Yes, it was worth it." Day finished his tea and stood up. "Then I should get back to work. These people need a ship that runs." Admiral Yong came aboard the Hammer of Dawn to meet with Captain Tay. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded fleets for 30 years and had seen every kind of battle, but she had never seen anything like this. 17 ships, she said, looking at the battle reports. "You destroyed 17 Kryn warships with 1 cruiser. The analysts back home do not believe it. They think someone made a mistake with the numbers." "No mistake," said Tay. "Just good people doing impossible things." Yong shook her head. "The Kryn have never lost like this. Not to anyone. When word spreads through the galaxy," she paused. "Everything will change. Good. The galaxy needed to change." They walked through the ship together, past crew members who stood a little straighter when they saw their captain, past repair crews and medical teams and Marines nursing their wounds. "What will you do now?" Yong asked. "Finish repairs. Take the Volari somewhere safe. Help them find a new home." Tay shrugged. "After that, I do not know. There is always more work to do." Yong smiled. "There always is. But Tay, what you did here, it matters. The Volari will remember. The galaxy will remember. Hell, the Kryn will remember." She put a hand on his shoulder. "You showed everyone what humans really are. Not monsters. Not killers. Protectors." Tay thought about that word. protectors. He liked the sound of it. The formal ceremony happened a week later, when the ships had been repaired enough to gather. The Volari flagship was too small to hold everyone, so they used the cargo bay of one of the Terran cruisers instead. It was not beautiful, but it worked. Elder Pym stood before the assembly, his old body held straight with effort. Behind him were the leaders of every Volari ship, and behind them the thousands of his people who could fit in the space. Outside, speakers broadcast his words to every ship in the convoy. 300 years ago, Pym said, his voice thin but clear. Our world burned. We lost everything. Our homes, our families, our future. We became wanderers, running from death, begging for help that never came. He paused, his glow shifting through colors of memory and pain. We called for help 1,000 times. No one answered. We knocked on 100 doors. All were closed. We began to believe that we were alone in the universe, that no one would ever care if we lived or died. He turned to look at Captain Tay and his crew, standing together in their worn uniforms. Then the Deathworlders came. A murmur ran through the Volari audience. We were afraid of them. The stories said they were monsters, creatures of violence and hunger. We thought they would hurt us worse than the Kryn. Pym's glow changed to that deep blue of respect. We were wrong. They fought for us. They bled for us. They died for us. Not for payment, not for glory, simply because we asked for help, and they were there to give it. He walked toward Captain Tay, his steps slow but steady. Captain, I speak for all my people when I say this. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You have given us something we thought we had lost forever. What is that? Tay asked. Hope. The Volari began to glow, all of them together. Pink and blue and gold, colors of gratitude and joy and hope. The cargo bay filled with soft light, like stars being born. Scout Lyra stepped forward from the crowd. She had changed in the past weeks. The fear in her eyes had been replaced by something stronger. Purpose. Captain Tay, she said formally, the Volari people wish to request protection under Terran authority, not as subjects, as friends and allies. We wish to travel with you, learn from you, and someday stand beside you. Tay looked at the young Volari, at the thousands of glowing faces behind her, at a people who had been running for 3 centuries and were finally ready to stop. The Terran government will need to approve this officially, he said, but speaking for myself and my crew, yes, we would be honored. The cheering that followed was mixed. Human voices, loud and deep. Volari voices, high and musical. Together they made something new, something beautiful. Later, when the ceremony was over and people had begun to celebrate, Lyra found Captain Tay standing alone by a window. He was looking out at the stars with a distant expression. Captain, he turned to face her. Lyra, you should be celebrating with your people. I will. I wanted to ask you something first. Ask. She stepped closer, her glow soft and curious. When you first received our signal, you did not know us. You did not know if we were good or bad, worthy or not. You only knew that we were asking for help. She tilted her head. Why did you come? What made you decide to risk everything for strangers? Tay was silent for a long moment. When I was young, he said finally, my grandfather told me a story about our ancestors thousands of years ago. They were weak creatures on a dangerous planet. Everything was trying to kill them. Animals, weather, disease, starvation. They should have died. He looked out at the stars. But they survived. Do you know why? Because when one of them was in trouble, the others helped. When someone was hungry, they shared food. When someone was hurt, they protected them. They formed groups, then tribes, then nations. They built cities and ships and reached for the stars. All because at the very beginning, they learned one simple lesson. What lesson? that we are stronger together than alone. Tay turned to face her. That helping others is not weakness. It is the greatest strength there is. Lyra thought about this. The other species do not think this way. They see helping as a cost, something that makes you weaker. I know. And look where it got them. Running from the Kryn, abandoning each other, letting entire peoples die. Tay shook his head. We chose a different path. We help. We protect. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Even when it costs you? Especially then, because that is what makes it matter. Lyra's glow shifted to that deep blue again. Your people are very strange, Captain. Tay smiled. Thank you. The Valari convoy stayed with the Terran fleet for 3 months while they searched for a new home. They found one eventually, a world at the edge of explored space with gentle weather and low gravity. It reminded the elders of the home they had lost. They named it New Dawn, after the ship that had saved them. The story of the Battle of the Dead Corridor spread across the galaxy. Some species did not believe it. One ship against 47? Impossible. But then the Kryn began to avoid human space, and the doubters grew quiet. The Valari thrived on their new world. They built cities and sang songs and raised children who had never known the fear of running. And above their first settlement, they raised a monument, a statue of a human hand reaching down to help a smaller figure stand. At the base, they carved words in both languages. They came when no one else would. They fought when no one else could. They are Deathworlders. And they are our friends. Years later, when Captain Tay was old and his hair was white, he visited New Dawn one last time. Lyra, now Elder Lyra, met him at the landing pad. Her glow was still soft and curious, even after all the years. "You look tired, old friend," she said. "I am, but I wanted to see this place once more." They walked together through the city. Valari stopped to bow as they passed. Children pointed and whispered. "The captain," they said, "the one from the stories." They reached the monument and stood before it. "Does it look like what you imagined?" Lyra asked. "When you first came to save us?" Tay studied the statue, the reaching hand, the grateful figure. "I did not imagine anything," he said. "I just heard a call for help and answered." He looked at her. "That is what humans do." Lyra's glow shifted one final time. "Gold, the color of love." "No," she said softly. "That is what heroes do." And somewhere, across the galaxy, another signal was being sent, another voice calling into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. The humans heard it. And they went. Because that is what Deathworlders do.